last Tuesday in this process?
Madam Chair, Representative Larkin, I think you can go back and then probably Eric Spencer is here from the Secretary of State's office. We have talked any number of times, and that's the reason for the two bills that are in the legislature at the present time.
Madam Chair.
And,
Yes. To the point on the money in the county, Jen, you represent all the counties, correct?
Madam Chair, Representative Whitaker, that's correct.
Did the other counties have problems like this and blaming it on the funding?
Ms. Broussard.
Well, she represents all the counties. Yeah.
Madam Chair, Representative Whitaker, the other counties are definitely going to be eating some of the cost of the PPE if the reimbursement that's in those two bills does not come forward. That's just a reality of PPEs as long as I've been doing this, because the $1.25 was set back in, I don't know, I think it was in the mid-80s it was set. So it doesn't reflect the true cost of running an election. So yes, all of the counties will be eating some of the cost of the PPE to varying degrees, of course.
Okay, so the other counties made it work. And to that point, one more question I think is important. Ms. Purcell, did anyone from the governor's office communicate to you that you would be reimbursed for this election?
Madam Chair, Representative Hill.
Nobody from the governor's office told you that that the money would be coming and you would be reimbursed?
I don't know of reassurances that I have.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Representative Whitaker, from a lobbying perspective, our organization is an advocacy organization, and this is what we do. And we have had communications with both Speaker Gowan, President Biggs, and the governor's staff, and they seem to be on the same page that the funding is probably coming. The challenge is the other piece of the bill, as Representative Clark mentioned, and so because right now they're tied together, I don't know that I have full confidence that the money is coming, because we don't know what's going to happen with that.
And to that point, if you didn't have full confidence that the money was coming or not coming, why wasn't there a contingency plan to have enough polling places at the $1.25, which is the number that you've been working with for the last 3-4 elections?
Amen.
Why didn't you have one that one plan with the we may have more money, and then the other plan with the if we have to go back to the $1.25 reimbursement?
Madam Chair, I think I've already explained that. I made a giant mistake.
That's not
Madam Chair.
Representative Larkin.
You know, one of the other things, you know, on Tuesday, I guess I'm kind of curious, because one of the greatest things that happened on Tuesday was that we really did see a lot of the community come together, hold each other's spots and lines, and bring water, pizza. Although, the other hand, we had people take time off work. You know, and missing putting in the hours to put food on the table because we had such long lines. I'm curious as to what did you do? How did you react to that? To make, to try to mitigate some of those impacts on throughout that Tuesday, last Tuesday.
Madam Chair.
Did we provide water? Did we try to, what was your reaction? And what did you do to try to at least mitigate some of those problems?
Madam Chair, Representative Larkin, we sent additional people, we sent additional equipment out to the polling places that were having the long lines. No, I did not send water out.
Okay. Audience. Representative Larkin. Okay. I did have a question. In statute, I believe, and I can't, to be honest, I'm sorry, I don't know if you touched on this, but I just wanted to make sure I got it in the record. I believe in statute you're allowed to have early voting locations. Can you tell me just how many there were and where they were, and what was done to kind of communicate that there were early voting locations available? And then can you also just tell me how much in advance do those get set up?
Madam Chair, the early voting sites were at my 3 locations, and they are set up 26 days before the election when the early voting starts. And they go through the Friday before the election, as required by law.
Madam Chair, to that point.
Representative Larkin?
Just out of curiosity, Madam Chair, Ms. Purcell, how are you classifying voters active or inactive, just as we start to go down that path?
Ms. Purcell.
Madam Chair, Representative Larkin, it is not whether a voter is active or inactive, but whether their address is inactive. If we have gotten notification that somebody doesn't live at that address, then we are required to send them two different, messages of some kind that have to go in the mail. And we cannot move them from active to inactive until that happens. However, if they come to a polling place or let us know or anything, that they in fact are, maybe have moved to another address, but just not sent us any information, then they are removed from the inactive and put on the active. So they are never taken off, they're always there if they let us know that they are still, in this jurisdiction.
Thank you.
Representative Clark.
Chair, one point and a question to Helen. It was mentioned that other counties were able to pull this off. And so the problem is all Maricopa, and I don't want to absolve the county of the states here, but ARS 16248A says that all these other counties must have a number of sufficient polling places such that there is one polling place for every 2,000 people. That is not required in Maricopa County. So it's much more open to how many polling places they can have. So to say, well, all these other counties did it, why couldn't Maricopa, kind of ignores the difference that's set out in statute for those two. But I do want to ask the question about Department of Justice pre-clearance, which unfortunately, due to an unfortunately ruled Supreme Court case, we're not under pre-clearance for Department of Justice anymore. And I think we're going to see what happens when we're not. You've been through pre-clearance process before, have you not?
Madam Chair, Representative Clark, yes, we have.
So, Madam Chair
A
Helen,
number of years.
you have many times. So, Madam Chair Helen, when you looked at this, did you honestly think, yeah, if pre-clearance were still here, we would have made it through, Department of Justice would have been okay with this? You didn't think about that? Okay, so, Madam Chair, this is my point. When the states, yeah, she did. So, Madam Chair, this is kind of my larger point. When states are not required to go to pre-clearance anymore, people just don't think about it, just like you said. We didn't think about it. And that's when voters are disenfranchised, particularly minority voters, that don't have the means to go to these polling places many miles away and take time off work. We need to have, if not pre-clearance from the federal government, we must have in this state an objective committee that will look at these polling places and decide, would this pass pre-clearance if we still had it? That's the only fair way to have votes.
Then, perhaps, I just want to kind of get a better understanding behind the logic of using no more than half of the number of precincts.
Yeah.
Why, can you talk about that verbiage in statute? That's,
Where are you,
yeah,
248?
no, 248C.
Madam Chair?
No, I'm sorry.
I apologize.
No. You need to sit down, because if I let you do it, then.
I can reintroduce myself, I think
Steve,
that's.
Reintroduce yourself, okay.
Okay, my name is Jennifer Marson. I'm the Executive Director of the Arizona Association of Counties. We work with all of the counties and their elected officials in a variety of different capacities. I am also,
Lobbyists?
we are a nonprofit, that's correct. I also work as a troubleshooter for Maricopa County during elections. I've been doing that for, I think, 8 years. I don't tend to work during session, so I wasn't working for the PPE, but a troubleshooter is someone who is assigned a handful of different polling places, and they're in charge of kind of rotating through them throughout the election, troubleshooting, solving problems, answering questions, filling in when there's long lines, stuff like that.
Are you a lobbyist?
Yes.
Madam Chair, yes, I am a lobbyist.
So nice.
Member, audience? You got an answer, let's continue.
Helen Purcell's on the agenda, as well as Secretary of State finally joined us. Thank you for joining us.
Yes,
Thank you.
You see where I'm referencing? What is the, so polling places for the presidential election by using no more than 1/2 of the number of precincts as of January. What is the logic behind that?
Madam Chair, I don't know. I think that section of statute has probably been in place since 1995. It looks like that's when this section was added.
Okay.
I'm not aware of a change to that section in the 14 years that I've been doing this.
Okay, so just old outdated statute, okay. Also, I have another question here. I believe for the reimbursement, I just wanted to get back on that, it's $1.25 for each active registered voter in the county, is that correct?
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, yes, that's right.
Okay, are you getting reimbursed for voters that are not eligible to vote in the presidential preference election? Mr.
Madam
Shaw.
Chair, that is all registered voters.
Right, so, the other voters, because I think that's how they're just, or the independents, that other category, who are not eligible to vote in the PP, correct?
That's correct.
Correct, okay. But they are being accounted for as far as a reimbursement rate.
Yes, Madam Chair, they are.
Do you see how here, you know, there's been comments made that you're not sufficiently funded, you don't have enough money, but you're getting reimbursed for voters that you don't even have to manage at the polling site, that are not allowed, and are not supposed to be voting. Do you think that's fair? Do you think that's appropriate funding? To get reimbursed for individuals?
Madam Chair, the funding that is available to us does not cover the ones who are eligible for this election.
But are you getting reimbursed for as far as I'm reading in statute, for active registered voters, does that include independents?
Yes, Madam Chair, it does.
So you are getting a $1.25 reimbursement rate for independents who are not eligible to vote in the presidential preference election?
That's correct.
Madam Chair, I believe the legislative history behind that decision, and that is a legislative decision, is because the state statute is something that has to work for all of the counties. You can't just write statute that works for Maricopa County. So if you look at a county like Greenlee, that has a much, much smaller population, if they were only reimbursed for party registration, they wouldn't even come close to having enough to put the polling places out, get the equipment. And so that was part of the discussion when the legislature decided that it needed to be actives and they didn't split it up by party. That was a legislative decision.
We came to hear from Ellen Purcell.
Representative Wendy.
To that point, Ms. Purcell, can you tell me the difference of how many registered voters there are now in 2016 versus 2008, which is what you use for comparisons for? And I guess I'll give you where I'm going with that while you're looking at it. If you have a natural increase in the amount of voters, you're getting more money than you did in 2008 because you have more voters, yet we constrain the amount of polling places, et cetera, that we're using. So I'm just thinking with the valley's been growing, by natural growth, you would be receiving a lot more money to put this on anyway.
Ms. Purcell.
Madam Chair, Representative, I will get that figure for you. I know that we have more people than registered voters.
Madam Chair, it looks like the total registered.
No, I got it. Thank you, Representative Moore.
This is from 08.
Okay, Ms. Purcell will be addressing, Representative Wendy's question.
Madam Chair, Representative, the total registered voters eligible to vote in the 2008 election was 1,114,208.
Madam Chair, so versus now, which you said, I think it's 1,238,792.
Madam Chair, yes.
So we have a difference, just doing quick math, of 124,000 and change, or 25,000 and change, multiplied by $1.25, $1.25 for, that's how much you've increased.
Madam Chair,
Ms.
Representative.
Purcell.
Okay, thank you.
To a question that Mr. Clark raised. I mean, it was quite a serious accusation as far as polling place locations and whatnot. Can you tell us how you go about and who in your office goes about choosing which polling, whether it's 200 or 60, which polling places you're going to use?
Ms. Purcell.
Madam Chair, Representative Benhart, we have a group of people in our office who do that, coming from various angles of it. Those people who deal with getting polling places, the people who look at our voter registration count. So there's a team of people that look at that with a map of the county. We did not use the legislative district as an overlay in this particular case at all.
To that point,
To the-
and we have it to the point here.
To the point.
Representative Carter.
Why? And to that point, for further explanation, I hope we're able to address this map on the presentation.
I'm gonna interrupt, members, there are copies outside this door, so for those who wanna follow along, please step outside and get a copy. Please continue, Representative Carter.
Because I represent pretty much everything north of the 101 from Scottsdale Road to 67th Avenue. And if you look, there is just a giant blank spot right here where on that day I received incredible amounts of communications of where do I go to vote. Most people, the highly popular polling places in this sort of North Phoenix corridor. Here's a better map. Okay, here's a better map. So there's a giant gaping blank hole right here. It was just really difficult for people, A, to figure out why their previous polling place was not open, and then what to do about that. And in one area right here alone, a polling place that, has 14,000 registered voters in that general vicinity has been closed now twice. So I understand that you didn't use legislative districts, but I think it's pretty clear that there's a gaping hole in many parts of the county.
Madam Chair, Representative Carter, yes, there appears to be. I think we did not use an overlay of the legislative district.
Was there, Madam Chair, to that point, was there a conscious decision not to use that as or was it just we thought we'd use something else? Was there a discussion around whether to use that or not to use it?
Madam Chair, Representative Carter, that this was supposed to be tallied on congressional districts. So we certainly looked at congressional districts, but did not look at legislative districts.
And Madam Chair, to that point, did you look at any other geographical boundaries such as the city council districts, or was it solely on congressional districts?
Madam Chair, Representative Carter, as I understand it, it was solely on congressional districts and just looking at our map in general.
So, and to that point, and it really isn't a question because I think the answer is it was just on congressional districts. That section of North Phoenix, there's entire school communities where there was.
Pretending you represent us. Yeah! We do not want platitudes. We do not want empty promises. We want action and accountability. This will not end today. We will be back every election, every vote, holding you all accountable. We are secure in the knowledge that our rights will be restored. Know that the days where we are silent are not over. Every vote counts.
Thank
Kenzie Ramakos, followed by Danny Robinson. Is Kenzie Ramakos here?
Thank you, sir. Your name for the record.
Kenzie Ramakos. I just have a few kind of things to bring to people's light. Over 38% of registered Arizonans voters identify as independents, and to deny them their right to vote in a presidential preference election, being the only closed primary in Arizona, seems kind of silly, especially when you consider the fact that I'm not sure when it was, but recently there was a voter registration data breach of over 191 million registered voters. Data is exposed, freely searchable on the internet. Using that information alone, anyone could go on to servicearizona.com and re-register them with a different party affiliation without their knowledge. And people's voter registrations have been changed across the country, and I feel like this is an issue that not a lot of people are talking about that much. I'm curious what would be the requirements to hold not a recount or revote, but extended voting with open registration and same-day primary?